Recently, actually 2 months ago, the PlayStation Experience 2016 had occurred, and it was home to many announcements. The Last of Us 2, Wipeout the Omega Collection, Uncharted The Lost Legacy, and a Parappa the Rapper remaster. But one game has me hyped, and it is Knack 2. The announcement of Knack 2 was mocked and joked across journalists and gamers alike due to the reception of the first game. Knack, originally a launch title for the PlayStation 4, was among one of the most hyped games for the system. I even remember wanting a PlayStation 4 just for Knack, but the release and the critical reception turned off many players, and the game has since only been perceived as a joke. Last year, after getting a PlayStation 4, I bought Knack. I knew if its backlash, I didn't allow it to hinder my experience. Overall, it was a good game. Not amazing, not great, not bad, just good. I understood what Mark Cerny and Japan Studio were trying to achieve, and they did a good job, it just fell short of what we expected. I want to talk about what Knack did good and bad, as it had many good and bad qualities, but first, let's talk about what it did good. Knack had good controls. He controlled just right, it felt great to fight enemies, and the intensity of having just a smidge of health on your health bar and defeating the final enemy in the area felt great. Japan Studio aced some of the environments in Knack. Some of the areas of the game rival the looks of Ratchet & Clank 2016. I feel like the concept of Knack, and all the objects he was made of, was utilized well in combat, because a lot of his moves were centered around what he was comprised of. But Knack had its flaws. The game was too difficult. Even on normal mode, the way the game was meant to be played, there have been many times when I died with full health over a small hit, and often, many enemies ambush you at once, leaving you to accept your death. Knack had a good story, but the fact that it was predictable and kind of boring left me not caring too much for the characters' goals. The characters don't exactly have character either. Knack had more character in the end credits sequence than he did in the entire game. Knack was advertised as an action-adventure platformer, and there is next to no platforming. And Knack was repetitive. Point A is to reach a specific area, Point B was to fight all the enemies in that area. Rinse and repeat. I break up Knack's flaws because there's a second game, obviously, and because it appears that the second game is improving on all the flaws I listed for the first game. Just reviewing the trailer alone, Knack has a lot more action, platforming, diverse areas to explore, and seems to have improved on the gameplay as a whole. Andrew Goldfarb from IGN was able to play Knack 2 with Mark Cerny, and had reported on the improvements for the sequel. He talked about the balance of difficulty, and how depending on what difficulty you choose, it will determine which path you take in the game, stating how the first game felt like a tech demo, the second feels like an actual game. Andrew Rayner from Game Informer was able to play with Mark Cerny too, reporting the game in better detail than Andrew Goldfarb. He talked about Knack 2, while the concept had not changed, it had improved on the first game in every aspect. The two levels he played were predominantly about platforming, with combat spliced in. Instead of a health bar, Knack 2 has regenerating health. Knack 2 established itself as a fully featured game, feeling more like a linear Jak and Daxter. He stated that Knack 2 has a wider selection of combat techniques, and while the first Knack had a big emphasis on combat, the second game has a stronger emphasis on exploration. Knack 2 is among one of my most anticipated games of this year. It seems like Knack is finding its own identity, and becoming better because of it. It's evident that Mark Cerny cares for Knack, and it's going to be great seeing the success story of the second Knack unfold.